Hello, welcome back to Social Studies. We have made it to Thursday. Today is our last day of Social Studies for the week. We have been talking about the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment within the Bill of Rights. Yesterday we talked about the freedom of the press and freedom of religion. Today we are going to talk about two more freedoms that are in our First Amendment right. We are going to talk about the right to assemble and the freedom of speech. So let's look at this passage here. The right to assemble means that people can gather in public places. They can also hold protests and rallies. Protesters may ask for a change in government. So think about in your life, have you ever seen a protest going on, maybe in your community, if you were walking through a park or if you were driving down the road? Have you ever seen people protesting? Maybe you have and maybe you have not. But they happen all around us all the time. Maybe you've even seen what happened on the news before. During the election season, I would see people protesting on the side of the road for the election, either wanting Trump to be in office or Biden to be in office. They had every right to do that, and they were trying to voice their opinion on who they wanted to be in government to make that change. We've also seen many protests happen in our history. This is a picture of women who are trying to gain the right to vote. So they are holding their signs, they are gathering in a crowd, and they are trying to have their voices heard. They are protesting because at this time they did not have the right to vote, and they wanted to be able to vote. So they are making their voices to try to be heard. All right, let's take a look. We'll go back. And then I want to jump over to this page here. So freedom of assembly. Again, assembly is when groups gather together to protest peacefully. That means they are not hurting anybody while they are protesting. They are not causing damage. They are protesting in a peaceful way. Freedom of assembly and freedom of association is the right to join together with others peacefully and reach a common goal, and express common opinions both in public and private. This usually includes business groups, civil organizations, unions, political parties, and protest groups. So if we look at this picture here, I see a lot of people gathered in an area all holding signs, trying to have their voices heard, because if you have a large group of people all saying the same thing, the goal is to have their voice heard and then to have some type of change in government. So let's look at restrictions here. Freedom of assembly does not mean that any group can come together for any purpose. Some governments prohibit militias, which is a small group of people outside the military that gather weapons and train soldiers, from demonstrating in public with their weapons to cause violence and a disturbance, because that could then become an unsafe protest if they were to do that. Many developed nations protect the freedom of assembly, and have passed laws or amendments ensuring that people have the freedom to gather and protest. If we look at this list here, look at the United States. We are on this list, and oh my goodness, where do you see that the United States has the right to assemble? Look at that. It's in the United States Constitution, in our First Amendment. That is what we have been talking about this whole time. Alrighty, let's go back to our next topic for today, which is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is the right to express your thoughts and opinions. It does not mean we can say anything that we want. We have the responsibility to tell the truth. We have the responsibility to use our words to make things better and not hurt others. Because we have this power, when we have a freedom of speech, we are able to say what is on our mind, but it's not right to use that to hurt others. Let's go ahead and look at this image over here. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press. What does it look like this person is doing right here? It looks like we have a woman who is speaking through a megaphone at some type of protest or some type of speech that she is giving. And that is a form of freedom of speech and freedom of press, really, in the same thing if she's part of the media. Let's look at this page here. Freedom of speech. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Freedom of speech is the right to state one's opinions or ideas without the fear of being stopped or punished. So imagine living in a place where you wanted to express how you're feeling, but if you did that, you got in trouble. That would not be a place where I would want to live. I want to live somewhere where I'm able to speak what I want to speak, and I want the government to hear my voice as well, because as citizens, remember we learned what citizens are. You have a role to be part of our government as well and to have your voice heard. In countries that don't have freedom of speech, though, people might be scared to say what they think. And then if you don't say what you think, then the government doesn't know what you want either. And if they don't know what you want, it can't respond to your wants. So freedom of speech is so, so important to our government process and just as citizens, so we can make our government a better place. All right, so just to review, we talked about the Constitution, which is the foundation of our government. It is the document that our government was built on, and how we know what to do in our government, we follow the U.S. Constitution. Within the Constitution, we have added the Bill of Rights. In the Bill of Rights, there are 10 amendments. And the First Amendment gives us our list of freedoms that we have been talking about this whole entire week. I know that's a lot of information. Thank you so much for following along. You did amazing today. Give yourself a pat on the back if you were able to follow along that whole time. Nice job. All right, after you are done watching this video, you will go and answer a discussion board question. I hope you all have a great